bends, scoops, growls, and more. We're going to talk about some of the exciting sounds you can make on your saxophone, and I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to do them. So pour a strong cup of coffee, and let's get to work. Hi, and welcome to the Saxophone Academy. I'm Dr. Wally Wallace, and if you're interested in saxophone masterclasses and product reviews, please do subscribe. We've got some very cool topics coming up this summer. Now, the saxophone can do amazing things. It can sing, scream, and swing, all while magically draining your bank account. So today we're going to talk about 3 extended techniques you can use to spice up your solos. But first, let's start with a word of warning. These are ornaments. They're additions to what should already be a great solo. These techniques are not intended to be a replacement for strong melodic content, so use them sparingly. And most young players tend to overdo them, especially the scoop. We want to make sure they're adding to what is already a great solo, not become a crutch that we lean on too much. Remember, these are like spices. They can add a lot of interest, but too much, you're going to ruin the dish. The bend. Now, before I teach my students the bend, I make sure they listen to Johnny Hodges, the lead alto saxophone player with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, and they listen a lot. He has a magical bend that really exemplifies the sultry sounds we can get out of the saxophone. Now, young players tend to do it incorrectly and way too often. They do a haw scoop with their jaw. It's too fast and only done with a jaw. The correct way we're going to learn today is a combination of voicing and fingering. Now, to make the pitch go upward in a bend, we're going to start with a lowered voicing. What that means is we're going to shape our oral cavity to bend the pitch downward and start there. Think of it like whistling. If you haven't done this before, try playing B with an octave key or a palm key and make the pitch go up or down by moving your tongue, just like you're whistling. So if you wanted to lower the pitch while you're whistling, take that tongue position and then do it while you're playing. So we want to raise the notes slowly with our voicing. And if you haven't watched the Overtone series videos, I'll put some links below. It's the same mechanism we use to shape overtones that we're going to use to bend the pitch. Secondly, we're going to use our fingers. We're going to slowly lift keys at the same time we're raising our voicing to create a smooth bend upwards. In general, I like to start a fifth or 5 notes lower than whatever my target note is. I will start fingering the note, then slowly start to lift the fingers while the bend is going upwards. Now, while you're doing this, there's going to be a moment where you're not really fingering any true note, and it feels very resistant. Make sure you push through your airstream and don't let the sound back off while you're doing it. Now, when you're doing this, don't raise the pitch too quickly. If you listen to Johnny Hodges or some other really good alto players, they're going to do it slowly and steadily. Hodges almost never gets to the pitch, waiting to the very last moment. Sometimes the correct pitch is almost implied more than reached. Young players tend to scoop very fast and get to the pitch almost immediately, and that's a telltale sign of someone who doesn't listen to jazz, because listening is the key. In order to do a good bend, you can practice the techniques all day long, but listening to the masters play is what's going to make it great. The Flutter Tongue, a good way to add an exotic little bit of flair to your solos. Now, young players always ask me how to growl. Growling is easy. Just do your favorite zombie impression and then do that while you're playing. It really is that simple. Just simply engage your vocal cords and then play. Don't overthink it. Now, the Flutter Tongue is slightly different and is somewhat reminiscent of a Parisian burlesque or 1960s surf music, rockabilly music. It's a different effect altogether and a bit more exotic. Now, to do this, we have to get in the right mindset. So we need to think sassy. Nope, sassier. There we go. From there, what we want to do is roll our tongue while we're playing. So you're simply going to roll an R sound while you're blowing. Now, to do this, we can't keep our tongue in the normal position or it will be blocked by the mouthpiece. So what we do is we pull our tongue backwards in our mouth. And it's fairly simple to do. It takes a little bit of practice and you're going to have to increase your air velocity. Picture your tongue like a windsock flapping in the wind. The faster the wind, the more air, the easier it's going to be able to do. So try the Flutter Tongue seldom and sparingly, but it's an interesting little effect to add some spice to your solo. the timbre trill. Now this is a fun effect that can really add some rhythmic punch to your playing. This is best seen in some of the 1950s jump blues players like Big J McNeely from back in the day. Essentially what it is playing a note and repeating it, but with a different fingering, thus creating a different timbre or color to the sound. Gives it a little punch while you're playing. Modern guys do this too. You can hear Kenny Garrett, Michael Brecker doing it a lot. I really love the way the 1950s blues players do. Has a really meaty sound to it that really makes solos kind of drive forward. Now to do this, we're just going to play a note, then change to a different fingering of the same note. There's a couple ways we can do this. Number one is with overtones. So say we play G2 or G with octave key. We can then create the same note with the overtone of C, just like we talked about in previous overtone videos. You want to go back and forth between the two. And you could do this with any note and the overtone fingering. Add some rhythmic punch going back and forth between the two notes. Very fun technique. The other way we can do this is with false fingerings. There's a couple notes that it works really well on. On middle D, you can't really play that as an effective overtone. So what we can do is, one, add our low B key. Or we can also add our left side key, number 2, your E flat side key, while you're playing middle D. Both will give the same effect. You'll also hear this in some of the higher registers using false fingerings. An easy way to do this is to try it with A2 or A with octave key. You can finger A, then add the right stack keys with the right hand while you're playing. And these work for the surrounding notes as well. Generally, you want to do this in a rhythmic fashion, not a trilling fashion, to give a little rhythmic drive to your solos. Very fun effect, but like all others, use them sparingly. Now, all of these techniques we need to view as an ornament or a spice. It needs to add points of interest to something that is already there. We need to have a well-built melodic solo first, then we add these to make them even a little bit more interesting. Use them sparingly, but practice them a little bit, but don't overdo it in your practice session. Spend a couple of minutes, maybe a couple times a week, but don't become obsessed with these. Like overtones, they're a tool in our practice to add to our tool bag of awesome saxophone tricks. Now in the comments below, let me know what are your favorite extended techniques, or what would you like to learn how to do. I'll see you next week, and until then, go practice.